Welcome to Out of the Blue. Number 119. So today I'm going to read from Houdini in a moment. But first I'm going to quote from this book, Rational Belief. Page 449, The Spirit and Method of Science. The author says, speaking broadly, science is the human activity which consists in the attempt to determine the truth or falsity of propositions. Now, I read this in response to the person who said I should be wearing a lab coat. And I thought they were kidding at first, but they weren't. And so if you think science is something that people in lab coats do, you are being irrational and illogical. Because science happens on mountaintops where people wear parkas, and science happens in the ocean where people wear bikinis. But I did put on a Stereolab shirt, so I'm not wearing a lab coat, but I'm wearing a Stereolab shirt. That's about as close as I'm going to get to a lab coat. Now, there's another misconception floating around. I'm quoting from a Houdini book, Houdini's Spirit World. And the misconception is that Houdini debunked spiritualism. And that is not exactly true. But he was very effective. And spiritualism pretty much declined since his day, but also magic declined. Magic used to be a much bigger industry. And magic has been in decline since the time that Houdini debunked the spiritualists, because what Houdini did was he said that they were faking it. He didn't debunk spiritualism. What he did was exposed fraud throughout spiritualism. There was a lot of fraud, and he exposed it, but he also kind of gave away what magic was doing. He said, well, they're doing magic tricks, essentially, but they're not. They're pretending to contact the spirit world, but it's really just a magic trick. But in doing this, he also kind of exposed magic as being not as mysterious. It's just kind of a gag, you know. So I'm going to quote from this book to make this point. So, Houdini says, not very long ago, this is called Poor But Honest. This book is falling apart, but Poor But Honest. Houdini says, not very long ago I received a communication from a New Jersey medium who asked me imploringly where she could obtain literature dealing with the production of psychic phenomena. She was an entirely sincere, serious-minded person, fanatically interested in the work she was doing, and she said that in all the 15 years she had practiced her mediumship, she had never been able to lift tables, materialize ghosts, produce wrappings, take spirit photographs, or perform any of the other acts required of a first-class spiritualist. She went on to say that another medium who dwelt in the immediate vicinity had set up business a short time previously and was having a tremendous success. In fact, she added, the latter's business was 90% more than her own, and she was gradually losing what few clients she had acquired. The second medium, it seemed, had acquired her popularity by bringing forth ghosts, doing slate writing, and practicing all the arts which were impossible to the first medium. Her own particular line consisted in going into a trance, and while in that state she tells fortunes gives prognostications of various kinds. While in that state, she tells fortunes and gives prognostications of various kinds. Her appeal to me was in the nature of an SOS, for after all, the poor lady could not starve. In my reply to her, I stated in part that the other medium was undoubtedly employing fraudulent methods in her seances, and I later proved this. Right. So Houdini exposed fraud in spiritualism, which there was plenty of. He did not entirely debunk spiritualism, but at the same time of exposing the fraud, he also kind of tipped the hand of what magic was doing, because he said, well, we're doing what they're doing, but we're being honest about it. And that set off a chain reaction that put spiritualism into a decline, but also put magic into a decline. So what I'm saying is that the premise of spiritualism, which can be traced back to Swedenborg writing about the spirit lands, the premise still holds true. But what Neo-Swedenborgianism says is that Swedenborg, when he was going into these trances and visiting these lands, if you want to be rational about it and you want to be logical about it, you cannot assume there is a supernatural. There is no other place. So when Swedenborg was in his trances, he was in his own mind. Therefore, Swedenborg's voluminous writing is a travelogue of the human psyche. You see? So then you connect that with the near-death experiencers who say, they had a heart attack and they traveled to some other realm. And they're utterly convinced of this. Well, Neo-Swedenborgianistically speaking, they traveled within their own subconscious and it seemed like another realm. Okay? So that now we have the situation where everyone has this other realm within their own psyche. It is a product of evolution. It is a product of natural selection. So if you want to turn into a theist versus atheist, traditionally the theist would say that God created Earth and created humankind, and this essentially reverses the whole thing and says that the afterlife and heaven and God are a product of human evolution. Because, and the reason we have to address this is because with all these near-death experience writings and books, the situation is not going away. Like somebody wakes up after a near-death experience and they talk about this other realm they visited and they completely changed their life. And how do we explain that? And we explain it by saying, similar to magic, it was an illusion. But we also have to say, based on the first-person accounts, that it was an illusion that usurps this reality. The illusion they saw was so real that they say it was more real than this, and it makes this look like an illusion. Now, it can still be an illusion. It doesn't have to be real. But since the accounts report people saying it's more real than real, and these people go on and change their entire life. So the fact that they perceived something, a greater reality, what they are calling a greater reality, is backed up by the changes in their life. They have seen something bigger, and they're living according to that greater reality. And so to address this Neo-Swedenborgianistically is to say that we are scientists, like Swedenborg was a scientist, and to look at it rationally is to conclude that there still is no supernatural. Swedenborg came to a different conclusion. That's why this is Neo-Swedenborgianism and not Swedenborgianism. Swedenborg concluded that this realm was real. And we, as readers and not experiencers of that experience, can only conclude that it seemed real. But it is also something that we all have. It's a potential that we all have. So maybe I've gone on too long.